Before we start today's video, I would like to tell you something. Making guides and explaining feature is harder than I expected, especially if you are a casual player and not really aiming for a win, but to enjoy seeing your favorite character won the race. But I, the current Korean player, have a dream that I and maybe our fellow Korean server player would like to see how well the global players would enjoy it. I wasn't expecting so much attention when I uploaded about what the Champions meeting is, despite showing it early. I'm afraid that my win rate for the Champions meeting is not very high. In other words, how many platinums do I have? I only have like 3 of my 24 Constellation Champions meeting plus 2 more after that, so it's not that much. Because of that, I might not be worthy enough to take a position to make a guide in the first place, which is why today I will introduce to you one of the best players in Umamusume, Meet Hukyosu, in English, Black Professor. Black Professor is one of the best Umamusume players currently playing on the JP server, making CM guides or other tips in Korean. When I first started Umamusume in the Korean server, his videos were very helpful and I got my first Champions meeting a win thanks to his guides. Remembering this, I contacted Black Professor and asked him if it is okay to show these guides in English, since he didn't have any plans for making guides to the global server, and the fact that is okay with Japanese and Korean, but not well at English. So I got permission to translate the Champions Meeting guides into English. So huge shout out to Black Professor. His channel and today's reference video will be in the description. Other guys after the Champions Meeting is all there if you want to see it in advance, but it is in Korean. So if you somewhat understand some Korean, highly recommend it to see Black Professor's videos first. If not, don't worry, I will be translating the following Champions meeting for you. I assure you that this will be very useful, guys, because not only is he a very active player, but he is super well. In the past, he was known for spending nearly $70,000 in this game. Today, I forgot the amount, but I am guessing he has spent more than $100,000 right now, which means that he has tried almost everything the game has to offer, even the ones with some support cards that are not very good for the record. So let us officially start today's video. Because it is our first Champions meeting, there is a lot to discuss, so I had to divide it into two parts. So today we will talk about the racetrack and recommendations for every position. And in part 2, we will be discussing the plans of what comps we would use. So for the start of part 1, let's dive into the racetrack explanation. The first Champions meeting racetrack settings are Tokyo, Turf, 2400 meter, which is medium, left counterclockwise, the season is spring, and the racetrack status is firm and sunny. The G1 race based on the Taurus Cup is the Japanese Derby. It was introduced as the first CM course on both the Japanese and Korean server, so it is likely that we will be following the same setup. Let's go over the key features of the Tokyo 2400-meter course. The numbers from the racetrack info has slightly changed if I recall that correctly, and it seems that the game tours info is showing us the updated version. I may be wrong about this, however, we have no control over the race itself, and it's about a few tenths of meter difference, so I wouldn't worry about it. But one of the features to mention is that at the start, about 40 meters, there is an uphill section. On the global server, however, if it is the same as the beginning of the Japanese and Korean server, the starting point would not include an uphill section, just to let you know. You may also look at this racetrack info from the Game Torah website yourselves, but let's look at the two main sections. The first section to look at is as the downhill, which is going to be one of the most important sections. The downhill, just before the final leg phase, is where the rapid rank changes occur. Due to the influence with stats and skills, rankings can shift very often. Umas with late and end positions often aim to trigger the inherit version of the Major Lion's ultimate skill, which is activated at the 6th place. Other sections before this downhill section may be as important. However, this downhill section is one of the critical points that can determine the race's outcome. The next section we would want to see is starting from the final leg phase. Here, it is important for late and end. For example, activating less pumps of iron followed by red shift is going to be important moments for the win. Of course, skills that are activating at the final spurt are somewhat important too, but when we talk about the crucial sections, it is this too. Next, let us know why making distance S is really a must. Here we have a comparison of two same configurations, but different distance grade. Speed 1200 with distance A versus distance S. The numbers here correspond to the top speed in the spurt. With distance A, the running speed is 23.58. With distance S, it is 0.74. This may seem minor, but is equivalent to the speed boost skill of 0.15. Take home stretch haste, for example, which has a 0.15 amount of speed boost. Now, the difference between having this speed skill and distance S is speed skill like this one has a duration, which means it will only give 0.15 speed just for some time. However, the effect of the distance S increases your top speed around 0.15 for the entire section of the spurt. While it doesn't affect the mid-race pace, distance S provides a constant speed boost in the maximum speed pace, akin to having one speed skill active throughout. Next, let's compare whether to take priority of power or width. This is just a chart for your reference. Now here we have maxed out power versus maxed out width. In the up here sections, more power means that the speed maintains without reductions. In the up here, making it faster, and in the down here sections, having more width has an advantage. Well, width 400 isn't that bad on down here, but higher intelligence increases the likelihood of rank changes. Based on 1,000 simulations, max out power averages a finish time of 57.958, while from width we have 0.879, slightly faster. But there is no really right answer to this. What you need to know is that maxing out power opens the stability in position battles, while taking more width makes you have higher potential. But for our personal opinion, I think stability is better, hence I would offer the power strategy. Now let's look at the sparks we want to inherit. For blue sparks, it depends what support cards you will use. For example, if you have maxed out Super Creek, for example, power sparks are recommended. Or when you use Power Vodka or Power Alejandro Pasa, you might want to get a Stamina Spark. Basically, try to earn the opposite spark of what you have as a support card. For the pink spark, the best is to have the distance spark, which is medium for this champions meeting. We have talked about the importance of having the S grade in distance. The second priority is TERP. So when aiming for your medium spark, when you get a TERP spark, you can use it as insurance. Plus, try to have many Ura finals, white sparks, which could be earned sometimes when finishing all the way to the Ura finals. Now, this spark gives you some stamina and speed stats, so the more you have the Ura final sparks, the difficulty of making your runner becomes easier. Next, we'll be looking at the recommendations for each of the positions, starting from front. First, the recommended stats are to make your speed to the top of 1200, your stamina somewhere between the 800 to 1000. The stats here are being simulated 100 times, satisfying the 95% of maximum spurt. So this is just an example of having this much stats in order to have a higher chance to fully have the maximum speed. Because everyone has different sparks and support cards, the ratio of stats can vary, but try to consider the stamina first in order to run the race more stable. Now, here are some changes for whether or not you take your healing skills. If you don't take your healing skill whatsoever, the stamina required is 1,000. Now, throughout this video, the stats will be considered rushed and being debuffed and make 95% over the last spurt. The required stamina will be high if you don't take your healing, so this is for the ones who are really brave enough to make this stats. Considering taking Swing Maestro, the stamina needed will be decreased to 800. Note that it is a stat when assumed that the Swing Maestro always activates for us. If you don't have Super Greek, you could be taking Breath of Fresh Air as your healing skill, which would be 900 stamina. The fact that Swinging Maestro and Breath of Fresh Air have the same amount of healing but have different recommended stats is because of the timing of Breath of Fresh Air activates. It could activate on the very start or at the very end of the race, which would be useless. So having all that, the average stats that have 95% of maximum spurt is about 900. Moving on to the entry for front, the most realistic option for front is Marjensky. However, having stable acceleration compared to other Umas, she needs some speed skill to cover up from the lack of speed increase from the ult. Other than Marjensky, there are some pros and cons for each of the Umas, but using Redshift as an inner skill is weaker than the original Redshift Marjensky uses herself, not to mention the potential drops. But if you have your favorite Uma in the front position, you may use them as you wish. Now for the skills can be used in front. Groundwork is a skill that front mostly have almost all the time to receive some acceleration in the early run. On the right here, we have Unrestrained because currently we don't have Seiyon Sky to inherit. There are not very much acceleration skill we could have as a front. So even though it has some random features, Unrestrained could make up for that. Only taking the sub skill, which is the final push, could be just fine as well. Having Redshift, the ult from Marjensky is a must. This is currently the only time-based skill that Front can use in the Tokyo 2400 meter condition. Escape Artist is considered a nice skill as well, but it can be obtained by using the Seiyo Sky stamina card, so taking just the sub version of the Escape Artist, which is fast paced, is just fine. Finally, when we look at the expected problem from up front, compared to Major Orion's ult, which is used in late and end positions, Redshift has a delay when acceleration, so after the spurt starts, you have to bear the loss of acceleration for using Redshift. Moving on to pace, the ratio and considering stamina story is all the same. What we see now is stamina requirements are now higher than front, having 100 more. Other than seeing the numbers, the rest is all similar. So I'll say in briefly, we don't consider the healing skill. It requires 1,050. In this case, making it nearly 1,100 will be more stable. Because the numbers are so high, pace is not that recommended for that reason. Taking Super Creek, we have 900. Now, if you take Super Creek's Swinging Maestro and Gorman, and assume both healing skills activate for sure, it reduces even further to 700. But keep in mind that having two healing skills requires you to have 600 to 700 skill points, which is going to be cost a lot. So pace is the positions for the experts of training. For the entry for pace, here we have Mergensky again. Originally, she has E in pace, so if we make her A in pace, it is going to be the most stable option. However, if you are not the master of training, I would not recommend her because you will need a lot of stats or skills in order to make this work. Another normal entry we could consider is Taiki Shuttle. Now, in the case of Taiki, she originally has E on medium, but as we make our spars mainly on distance, Taiki would be more easy than making pace Marjensky. This is a case of which skill would you use as an original? Would you use Taiki and inherit Emergency's ult, or would you use it in another way around? The slight problem of Taiki here is other than Marjensky, the ult has a condition of 3rd to 5th, so Taiki is an option to consider if you use Marjensky as front or you don't use a late or end position. There's not many options to choose for pace, so it is kind of a consideration. Speaking of considerable options, if you inherit Merdinsky and Taiki's ult, any pace would be similar, but considering the runner's ult, Oguri or Scarlet could be considered. But again, only consider the assumption that there are many front and pace in the race. For the skills, just like front, pace could be considered using groundwork. It is not that entirely essential for pace, but taking passive skills and achieving the condition of groundwork, it could be a considerable skill. Now, the skill that is not recommended is Speed Star. It is because in the case of Tokyo 2400 meter, only 20% of the time it is going to be effective, making it unstable. The expected problem for pace has the same problem as front when we talk about the delayed acceleration of redshift. Besides that, pace has higher stamina requirements here in the reference Google Docs. It is written as liters. On top of that, pace has no considerable acceleration skills other than Merzinski and Taiki's ultimate. Taiki's ult being only activated at third 2 VIP is a problem. Moving on to the late position, compared to pace, requirements are very low. It is a 780 to 980, but little more than 20 more stamina is recommended. So have like 1,000 with no heal, or have like 800 with super creep. Now moving on, using Major Ryan's ult in late and end position is going to be the main thing. So we have Ryan as an original recommended entry, activating Let's Pump Some Iron, followed by the Red Ship and Shooting for Victory is going to be very strong. If those three all activate, the potential is unreal. So it is to say that Ryan is one of the free to players heroes to win against the whales. So now speaking about heroes, Ogre Cap is also considered by players who have very few support cards or poor sparks. Ogre is recommended as late rather than paced because after we have Ryan and Marjensky's ult for accelerations, Ogre ult is considered to have top tier speed skill at the final straight. For the same reason as Ogre, from the final straight, Rudolph's ult is also good speed skill. However, compared to Ogre, she is harder to train and the ult is unstable compared to Ogre. Now, just like Rudolph, Grass Wonder is considered to be used as a developer, but when considering Grass as an ace, a combination of inherited ultimate skills plus Grass's special skill and on your lab acceleration skill have some good potential. Nice Nature can be used as an ace, but when you consider using a debuff strategy, it is best to use Nice Nature as one of your developer, but she has a decent growth rate that you can use her as an ace. The berry skill, you want to take it as a late. Major Ryan's ultimate skill is a must. We have talked about the problem up front that the red shift has a delay when activated. Now Major Ryan's Let's Pump Some Iron does activate right away, but it might be hard to make 6th place at the start of the late race depending how the opponent positions their Umas, but it is very good skill for late and end position. After that, it might be good to take both the red ship and shooting for victory, but for the regions of skill points, trying to get at least one of these two is recommended. For the Slick Surge acceleration skill, when we want to activate Ryan's ult, we may be behind 6th place, so this skill is here for an insurance that even if we are running in 7th to last, activating this skill might make them into 6th place, making them activate the Let's Pump Some Iron. Now, Grass Wonder has the higher version of this skill, which is on your left. So when you want to use her as an ace, you may want to pick just that. Another great skill to inherit is Ogre's special skill, which I have mentioned before. Decent speed skill, so can be considered to grab it when you have put it in your sub legacy or so. Now, the expected problem for late is very much clear. Exactly 6th place at the start of late race is being needed. If not, it is likely the red shift or shooting for victory would not be triggered as well. So, very good potential for sure, but it could have some very terrible results as well. Now we move on to the late position. Stamina 800 to 1000 is needed. Those healing skill will need 1000 stamina. Now here we have two options. If we consider taking Super Creek or using Gold Ship as our runner, then the stamina requirements will be 800. Naturally, the entry recommendation is Gold Ship. Now for the later part of the race, both acceleration and speed are given. the best multiplier, which means that the end has more potential than late. However, end has to be on 6th position in order to activate Ryan's special skill. And one of the best Uma to achieve this is Gold Ship. Also, she has a nice growth rate of 20% of stamina and 10% of power. When you try your training more and more, you will realize that this setting of growth rate is really nice. Moving on, Uguri and Rudolph are not A on and in the beginning. However, as before, both have very nice final straight speed skills, so this is a consideration of putting them to the end position. Also, with the late multiplier, we could expect them to have higher potential compared to putting them on pace or late. Recommended skills are quite similar to late, so let's look at it quickly this time. Major Ryan's special skill is a must skill, also for and having at least Margensky or Taiki Shoto as your legacy is also the same. Having Ogre Ult as a speed skill is also the same. Thinking late and end as the same package will make you think more easily. The expected problem is also similar, same problem as late, the problem of taking the 6th place. Plus, unlike late, we don't have the insurance skills such as on your left. It's just that the potential is powerful enough to take the risk, is what you need to know about the late and end positions. Finally, we have seen all of our positions. Is there a skill that is recommended in all of the positions? Yes, there is. These are the skills you would want in your white sparks to have a decreased skill points for these skills. Now, generally, the good sparks you would have for any champions meeting is to have the passive skill, which icon is green, having corresponding directions. The race is, in this case, left-handed. The season of the champions meeting is opening, which is spring runner. It's generally good to have. Professor of curvature from Kitasan. Almost every time it is being used, very, very good. The corners and straight skill, the distance the CM is holding. In this case, the medium corners and straight is also very good. For each position here in the example, we have front runner corners and straight speed skill. The same for pace, late, and end all have this skill, so grinding for this is excellent. Tail held high, slipstream, playtimes over are also very good. The skills that I mentioned here still very useful even 3 and 4 years after the game, so you should know that we will be using these skills all the time. For this champions meeting, it's on is considered a great skill as well. And finally, at the top right here, we have Lone Wolf. For this skill, when there are only one Uma in the 9 Umas in the race that have this skill, she's the only one who gets this speed buff. If you make one of your 3 runners with this skill, even if someone else have get Lone Wolf, you can negate your opponent's speed buff. If you are the only one, you get a nice bonus. So it is the one of the recommended skills if you have some leftover points. Just be careful not to put 2 or 3 of your runners with this skill. It will cancel out even for your team. That's here for part 1. Next video, we will talk about what comp is considered a good plan. For the short answer, you could have 3 A's or 2 A's with 1 developer, or 1 A's with 2 developer. We will talk about this subject in detail in part 2. As always, thanks for watching and see you in part 2.